Okay, so this part of the video is originally I recorded this along with my reaction to the Lee Sin ASU, like the bits of the video, the Riot Police Dev blog video thing that they uploaded to their YouTube channel, and I just sort of clicked on the article for the Lee Sin ASU, and I just started reading that. But it was a little clunky altogether, so I decided to cut it off into different videos. So if there's some stuff I refer to in this video that's like, oh, hey, what is he talking about there? Maybe some of that is back in the reaction to the actual dev vlog blog video thing that I did, which is going to be like just exactly previous to this one. So you can start there if you want to, or you can just sit with me and go through a bunch of the cool, interesting stuff about the Lee Sin ASU, because when you dive into the technical details of the work that happens behind the scenes of these characters, it's always really fucking good. And this Lee Sin update is no exception. Some real fun stuff about the ponytail. Okay, let's have a look at that Lee Sin ASU thing. It's Ocelot who's on. Okay, cool. Let's see. He's been around since 2011, making him a teenager as of this year. Yeah, he's a veteran at this point. Since his release, collected quite a few looks and fantasies. Over time, this has resulted in some unintended consequences like inconsistent body proportions. Yeah, fucking hell, yeah. That fucking heaven scale Lee Sin, I think it was, like, some of his legendaries are just, like, yes, too many of those, first of all. But also, boy, like, the way that they're rigged and animated is, like, horribly inconsistent in some ways that are, like, that are not great, I think. So let's see. In order to help 3D modeling and rigging and create consistent proportions, we've updated the concept art for each Lee Sin skins to match his new ASU look. So that's, like, and the downside of this, like, is that they're gonna homogenize him, right? Like, he's going to be homogenized, he's going to have fewer distinct looks and feels across all of his skins, which, like, you can definitely conceptualize that as a strength of the character once upon a time, that there was so much uniqueness to each of his things. I found a lot of it kind of annoying and shoddy to look at, like, when I was looking at the character's animation and the way that he's animated and sort of designed. But like, I think that's probably good from a gameplay perspective, and also from keeping the character visually recognizable as Lee Sin, right? Oi, sorry. Because that's one of the things about Lee Sin with some of his fucking skins is like, how the fuck are you supposed to recognize that as Lee Sin? Like, how are you even supposed to? Because, like, Knockout Lee Sin is one of his old skins, but it's also one of his best. And I really hope they manage to keep, like, the distinctive... I really don't think he should have had the goatee on Knockout. I really don't think so. I hope they really managed to keep his distinct, like, street alley boxer thing that they had got going on with that skin. Like, I hope they don't homogenize away stuff like that. Like, there are good things about the uniqueness of each of them. Like, what I'd really want... Oh, fuck, that looks horrible. Jesus Christ, no. Oh, God. Oh, no, with the ponytail. Oh, no. I mean, fuck, that skin line, what was it called? The sports ball skin line, the techno sport thing that they tried. I don't know what the fuck the concept of it was. But with the fucking ponytail on top of that haircut, no, oh, dear. Oh, that skin was not designed to support the ponytail at all. Oh, dear. I hope, like, that there are some unique things about Lee Sin's many different skins that I do worry a little bit could be lost in a worst case scenario. Like the Muay Thai, the differences in that animation for Muay Thai. What I would love to see, my dream would be that stuff like the Bruce Lee skin would have unique animation that's based on Bruce Lee's, like, fighting style and like his way of moving. In the same way that Muay Thai and like pugilist boxer punch up whatever Lee Sin has unique punching animation, and, like, because he's like a 1920s sort of boxing guy. So more recent skins undergo a few changes because their world building and visuals are more cohesive and figured out. Again, such as Nightbringer and Zenith Games, that's what it was called. Zenith Games sucks so bad, dude. Zenith Games is such a... I don't know what the fuck that skin line was supposed to be at. Like, what were they even trying to do? Hammerjack? What the fuck? How does Lee Sin fit into any of that? Oh, well, whatever. Lee's Acolyte skin was always a bit of an enigma, because this skin is his on its own, or could be tied into an existing universe, which is the thing, right? Like, When we first started exploring concepts for the skin that's Acolyte, we set out to see if we could make the skin exist as part of an alternate universe that reflects Lee Sin's Ionian roots. This led to the decision to go with colors that are reminiscent of the skin's original colors. The first direction, option A, felt the most resonant in terms of shape and design, but maybe we could tie this in with another champion from Ionia. Karma felt like a strong choice in terms of story and connection, which steered Acolyte Lee Sin's fantasy and color palette into a follower and disciple of Karma. That's why they made the changes. Okay, that makes sense. That you would then choose like this softer, sort of more restrained color palette with the teal and all of that in there. He's an Acolyte of Karma. Like, okay. But like, this also just looks way more interesting. Like, he looks almost sort of like Raiden from Mortal Kombat ass here in some of these things. Which, like, this to me feels way more exciting than this. This is probably more cohesive, but okay. On the other hand, traditional Lee Sin is another old skin, but one that retained the overall vibe and palette, just needing some fine-tuning and cleaning up. Yeah, I don't know that I'm a fan of the way they did the hair here. I don't know how it's going to look in-game, but the bangs there are like, That's sort of very 2000s anime solid hair shape bang, just sort of stapled to the forehead kind of vibe a little bit, which, Again, maybe that'll look better in-game, but I don't know about the way that it's rendered here. Preparing the ponytail. One of the questions we expect players to ask is, why give Lee a ponytail? Well, technically, Lee has always had a ponytail, but it was wrapped around his shoulders and essentially glued in place. Yeah, and the main reason it was that is because with the tech they had available back when they made Lee Sin, they couldn't have done a flowing ponytail, like, very well. Like, it would have looked quite bad. So they didn't, so they just, like, strapped it to his body so they didn't have to deal with it. So we asked ourselves, why not make that element shine? Adding a more dynamic ponytail adds an interesting animation and silhouette element to Lee Sin's design. On an additional note, there were some gameplay and clarity issues that caused Lee to read as Ezreal and other human champions. Yeah, that's one of the problems Lee Sin has always had, is that, like, in some of his skins, Storm Dragon, he has had some fucking trouble reading as a specific character. So integrating the ponytail as an important element of the character is like... Yeah, I think that makes sense to integrate that as an important part of his silhouette design to, like, make him stand out and everything. But then there are some skins that don't support that. The Bruce Lee skin wouldn't support the ponytail. The Godfist skin wouldn't really support the ponytail in the same way. You could. And certainly Knockout Lee Sin wouldn't either. This would not only help his base and existing skins, but also future skins have a more distinct silhouette. In most cases, we were able to include the ponytail in a way that felt natural. However, there were a few times where it didn't feel correct, so we didn't want to force anything unnatural. That's why you don't see his new locks on Godfist, Dragonfist, and Knockout Lee Sin. Good choices. Good choices all to sort of keep those away. Godfist is a popular legendary that focuses on godly powers. We originally had a ponytail, but it detracted from the godly monk look. I'm sorry. You could definitely integrate a ponytail with that in a way that looks fucking cool. Just don't make it out of hair. Like make it like a golden tether of power or something that sort of comes out of it. Like, I'm sure there's things you could do, but I also understand not wanting to. Losing the hat would have made the design feel incomplete. For future skins, we plan on the ponytail to be an integral part of a silhouette. Yeah, it makes sense to sort of just give these skins an exemption from it because they have silhouettes on their own and design aesthetics that just don't support the ponytail. So leaving it out there is like, that's perfectly fine, frankly. But I'm interested to see, like, okay, the ponytail is going to be, like, really important to the future of the character. Let's see. The main goal of ASU has been to update old champion models and textures to hit current League art and tech standards, while still keeping and clearly communicating parts of the champion's identity that players have grown to love. The best way to showcase how we did that is probably by comparing its old models and the new ASU versions. You can see the new model on the left and the old version on the right. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a higher polygon count all around, which definitely helps, but what I'm noting is just also, like, you can see the very different approach to shape language, right? Like how the old skins have this much sharper, more jagged approach to shapes in general, like especially on the Bruce Lee skin. You can really see like the sharpness of the shoulders. New skins have a much softer approach in general, like with more like big identifiable pieces. Like, you can really see the shift in League of Legends art direction sort of play out with these. That's quite cool. Oh, yeah. Lee Sin's old models were exactly that, old and in desperate need of a full rom-com-like makeover. Okay, so we ended up starting over and not reusing many of the old geometry or textures. We rebuilt his model based on our current league tech and art standards while translating the new exciting ideas that concept art gave us into the model. You should see a vast improvement in his posture and overall anatomy. Yeah, because Lee Sin, my god, his old animation, his old fucking, like, the way that his model was put together, and just the way he moved, like, that motherfucker never stood still even once in his life. And, like, look at that, like, look at the joint between the shoulder and the arm here, because, like, a lot of the time he really was like a rubber doll that was just kind of being stretched and warped by, like, the hands of a particularly ungraceful child, and it looked terrible from up close. Like, he looked okay from a distance, which is, like, all that matters, but he did not look good up close. I guess a character model, good grief. Along with improved outfits, cooler hairstyles, and new glammed up textures and arm power. Yeah, so you have a fan of spamming your laugh after destroying your enemies as Lee Sin. You'll be glad to learn that the new ASU model you'll be able to do so without looking more dead than they are. Who's laughing now? Yeah, because, like, boy, that didn't look much like a laugh, did it? This isn't necessarily much better, but he sure does seem to be flexing his tits when he does his laugh there. Let's see. When looking back at our previous Caitlyn and Ahri ASUs, we rarely touch up legendaries in 3D as part of ASUs, but with how outdated God Fist Lee Sin's proportions felt, compared to the rest of his catalog, we agreed to make an exception for Lee and give him a little bit more love. We hope his updated proportions and enhanced textures help you enjoy the skin's godly fantasy even more than before. Storm Dragon Lee Sin's model was a lot more recent, so there isn't as much of a need for a big change, but you'll notice he's now rocking his beautiful ponytail. Oh, indeed he is. And that really fucking does help, because, like, this might as well be a fucking Ezreal skin. Like, especially with the one arm that has, like, the special effects on it that kind of, oh, that's, like, it was very, very indistinct. The ponytail helps a lot in identifying him more as Lee Sin. I don't think he 100% looks like Lee Sin still, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, you can really see the difference here. Look at this squat little, like, 5'3" short king over here. Like that, he almost looks like a dwarf a little bit, like how squat and how short and how stout he is. Whereas, like, with Lee Sin, the fantasy is more of being like this hyper agile god of martial arts sort of things. Like, stretching him out a little bit, giving him some, like, smoother proportions. That's definitely an improvement, I think. Base meshes and 3D sustainability. A big part of the ASU is the focus on the S, which stands for sustainability. When we develop ASUs, we aim to set anyone who works on a skin for an ASU champion up in the future for success. In the 3D art discipline, one of the ways to do this is by creating a base mesh before the full ASU production starts. Right. Yeah. A base mesh is a naked model of the champion with updated proportions, topology, face and body, and UV maps. It's silly that they put underpants on him, but I get why they do it. That will be reused as a starting point for ASU skin updates and future skin creation post-ASU. Doing the hard part of figuring out things like anatomy and facial likeness early on before we start working helps us keep the champion looking cohesive throughout their work on all of their skins and beyond. Yeah, and this is some of the invisible work that goes into, like, game asset creation a lot of the time, is, like, doing stuff like that, like creating, like, these base tools and, like, these like documentations and tool sets that you can work from when you do more work in the future. And that's one of the things about League of Legends, like, ye old League of Legends, like, from way the hell back in the day, like, you'll often hear people referring to stuff like spaghetti code and tech debt and stuff like that, and a lot of that came from, like, it was just a bunch of people all working on their own individual parts of it, sort of, like, fitting it together with spit and duct tape a lot of the time, like, building their own individual things in a way that wasn't always super well coordinated across the company, and that led to a bunch of problems down the line that Riot nowadays, to their credit, do seem to be very focused on attempting to prevent from happening, right? Like, for example, by doing something like that, like building a naked base model for him that can become the basis for future skin making for him, is like, yes, that's a really solid idea. It sounds weird that they hadn't done that already, but that's because back when Lee Sin was designed, that wasn't really a part of the design process for these champions. I like, so that's just good. That's just good, solid work right there to do that, to create those tools. And that's one of the things I do like about Riot's blog post, is that they do make a bit of a point of trying to surface some of the, lesser known parts of game development, and some of the behind the scenes stuff that the workers do in order to make the work, not only make good work in the moment, but set the work up for continued high quality standards in the future, and make future work easier for their future colleagues. It's that's a big part of game development. It's this thing of it's not just you working on your project and your thing right now. You also have to think about someone else is going to have to come along after you and take up the work that you are doing on some of your projects, because you're not going to be around forever. So you want to set shit up so that whoever steps into your role in the future has as easy of a time working within it as possible, right? That's a solidarity that exists in game development, or should exist in game development. Sometimes when work environments get toxic, it really doesn't exist, but that's good job, Riot. I think that's a nice little thing to surface. I'm glad that we get to see that. Let's see, technical art. The term technical artist is actually quite the umbrella term. In my case, I'm a character technical artist. It means I deal with the insides of a character. And no, this doesn't mean rendering Lee Sin's kidneys. It means putting a skeleton inside our champion's model and making sure the character moves as expected. We put controls on the skeletons so that our animators can bring the life to our champions. With that in mind, let me show you some of the cool stuff we got to create for you all. And that's the discipline of rigging, right? Which you have to be careful about pronouncing this word. The rigger on a animation production is the person who takes the model that has been built by the artists and puts the animation bones inside of it, and make sure that those animation bones connect to each other properly, so that so that you can automate certain things, for example, when you move the wrist, to have the arm follow in a natural way, right? That sort of makes sense within the anatomy of the character, and making sure that when you decide to break the model, when you decide to do squash and stretch, when you decide to play with proportions, when you decide to morph and fuck with it, when the animator is being expressive with the model, that the model is set up to be able to do those things, be able to support that kind of expressiveness, so that the animator can do their best work, which is another one of those things, the rigging departments, the technical artist departments, don't get enough of the credit for good animation in 3D movies, I think, because without them there setting up those tools, making those things work together coherently, you don't get animation that's nearly as good as what you see in the final product if there isn't a good technical artist somewhere behind the scenes making sure that the animator has the tools they need to do good work with the models that they're fucking around with, right? When we saw the eyeball in Prestige Nightbringer Lee Sin, we saw an opportunity to add something fun. What if the eye moved? He's got an outstandingly large eye on his chest. It'd be a shame if it seemed dormant. Yeah, that's a really cool detail to add, to have the little demon eye moving around on him. That's quite nice. I like that. That's a good detail. Mastering the martial arts. The new rig updates for Lee Sin also made it easier for our animators to nail some intense martial arts poses, which gave them the capacity to really dive into finding references to make sure that we're doing the pose justice. Oh, yeah. Oh, that looks good. Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah, that looks good in motion. That really does. Even from the front. We also tried to make sure give our strong lad the ability to really show off those muscles. He's got his own chest and back controls. Nice. With this, we've set up future animators to have the ability to really push his rig to show off his strength. Yeah, pay attention to that. Pay attention to the way that the model inflates and deflates and stretches and squashes in these animations right here. I can't slow them down for you, unfortunately. I might do a video on his animation once he's actually fully out. But, there's some great fucking snappiness and fluidity to the way that yeah, I can actually see those fucking back muscles being engaged for this. Nice. Hang on. Yeah. Oh, that feels good. Fucking hell, that looks so much fucking better than he does in game right now. In game right now, he just looks like a little fucking plastic doll being moved around. This is heaps better. There we go. Ponytail perfection. This is where our Uber rig system comes into play. Larger group controls, white, help to mold overarching silhouettes on the ponytail, while individual controls allow for precise posing so our animators can have that finesse to check out some of the cool behavior we were able to achieve. Yeah, the ponytail, that's also going to be a thing of like, in terms of controlling Lee Sin's animation readability, is like, because I know they have like physics simulation ish systems in League of Legends that sort of handle like when he's running around to have the ponytail sort of react in a way that feels physics based, like to whip around and move around his body in a way that follows him when he moves. Same tech they use on like Aurelion Sol's tail, and like Ari's tails, like a bunch of that stuff has these little procedurally generated physics, air quotes, big air quotes around that, physics simulation tech that sort of procedurally generates movements for them that feel authentic in the moment. The ponytail's going to have that for a lot of Lee Sin's movement, but the animator's also going to have to play real carefully with it to make sure that its posing, like what the ponytail is doing, doesn't interfere with the clarity of the poses that they want to sell for Lee Sin's martial arts. And looking at the ones they're presenting here, they've done a really good job, because like a ponytail like that can really interfere with shit like lines of action and lines of motion and dynamism, and it can shift the perceived center of gravity of a character if it's like too big or it's hanging in a weird direction. So that looks like, I think that looks generally really good. Yeah. I mean, I rarely have bad things to say about Riot's animation. I rarely do, frankly, because they are good. They are good at what the fuck they do. Considering Lee Sin's super grounded inspiration, it felt less than satisfying to see and feel how he executed his killer moves. His 13... Why did it have to be Annie that he's beating up? Jesus. His 13-year-old kit was full of animations that had him perform magnificent feats of martial arts in a floaty and slidey fashion. Yep. We saw an opportunity to really elevate his martial artist fantasy through updating his recall abilities, attacks, etc. So off the work to it. Let's zoom in a little bit on that. One thing you'll notice about Lee Sin ASU is that his attacks will all revamped to communicate more impact and satisfaction. Essentially, we made updates to make it feel like Lee's punches really packed weight, but to do this we needed to introduce texture to the timing of his punches. For context, texture refers to the asymmetrical timing and spacing of movements and poses with the goal of highlighting them. Yeah, like pay attention especially to the kick that Lee Sin does. Like there, right? Relative like the just kind of it there, it's kind of like he's just poking Annie, right? Like he's just kind of going poke, poke, poke. This feels like he's actually putting his weight into like a fucking hit, right? Like he's actually trying to deliver some actual damage. God, it's so much better. Holy fuck. Lee's Q and E both had pretty vague two-pose animations that, despite their iconicness, felt more robotic and floaty, so we updated the animations to give them some much-needed weight and flair while preserving their identity. Here's a side-by-side comparison example to both look pre and post. Yeah, like the Q is like... he just kind of snaps into flying kick pose here, and then he just kind of flies while holding his hands weird. This is better. Like, for one thing, because, like, look at the difference in the way that he leads. Like, this feels much more like he's really leading with his foot. Like, there's limits because he has to, like, because of the gameplay constraints of League of Legends, when you press the Q for the second time, Lee Sin can't do a wind-up motion, right? Like, he can't sort of stop and plant his feet and go and bend his legs and then jump into a flying kick towards the enemy. He has to go, like, now, right? Because that's part of his gameplay feel. So it'll never look like a credible leap. It'll always look like he's being magnetized towards the thing that he's hitting. No way around that, really. But that flying pose, like the way that he's leading with his foot and leaning back, the clarity of the foot coming first and having the glow on it, like at the front there, relative to the way that it looked in the old one, where he's just striking a weird pose and just kind of being dragged forward. This is so much better. Like, this feels way more credible as like a flying kick animation. Even with the, like, they do a little tiny itty bit of wind up, like as much as they possibly can within 2 frames, but God, it's better. Yeah, Jesus. On the topic of floating, another glaring problem of Lee was his tendency to float around, sometimes way outside of his hitbox during certain animations. Lee's idle, variant, dance, and taunt all had him move outside of his stationary hitbox, which could sometimes be confusing for players. Enemies would try to land skill shots and watch as Lee Sin dodged everything Matrix style. Our job here was simple: keep him inside the hitbox without removing his practiced fighting forms. Yeah, that's another thing about Lee Sin's fucking dance, is like, there was some cool shit going on there. Like, that was the animators pushing really hard on what could be done with his ancient fucking outdated model. But that was definitely like a gameplay clarity issue. His actual hitbox is probably somewhere like here. Yeah, again, it just looks so much fucking better in motion. It really does. No ASU comes without a pass over the champion skins. In total, Lee Sin has 17 unique skins, including silhouette elements. To his visual read means we have to ensure set elements all animate consistently and convincingly no matter which skin is being used. His ponytail, in particular, must be checked constantly to ensure that it doesn't clip into his body or the floor at any point during his animations. Not only, I'm sure it clips into something at some point. Like, there's no way in hell it doesn't. But that's okay, right? That's not really a problem. What they mean is that it mustn't clip in a way that is like distracting or off-putting or like degrades the quality of the animation and the model in general. Although looking at this, like, they have done a real fucking careful job of making sure that that ponytail doesn't get into trouble with any parts of his costuming. Which is the difficult thing. Like, if they want to put Lee Sin in a really cool, elaborate costume, that might mean, like, depending on how much work they want to put into it, that might mean they have to do a bunch of new animation work on his ponytail to make sure it doesn't clip into shit that they put on his shoulders or whatever. Not only that, he had 5 skins with unique animation sets, 4 of which need to be refitted over his new models. Each new visualization of his ponytail has to be clear of potential bugs, readability, or clipping-wise. Yeah, and that's a lot of fun. Again, that's the thing about invisible work, right? Like, how much invisible work goes into trying to make sure that these animation features, these little bits of the champion's character work and fit with his animations without clipping, without causing like distractions in various ways. It's so much fucking more work than anyone thinks to do something like this, right? Like that's the thing that gets frustrating, because like I have my frustrations and criticisms with Riot and the way that they put together their shit, right? Absolutely. But one thing I will never do, I'll never call the workers at Riot lazy. Like, never. The company, the corporation, absolutely. That, like, Riot, the company is lazy all the fucking time. They try to take shortcuts all the fucking time. They try to take the easy way out all the fucking time to the detriment of the quality of the game, absolutely. But the workers, the people who are actually handling the work on the ground, you have no idea how much fucking work they put into there. And you don't have to like the output. You don't have to like the thing that they make. You don't have to like the product. You still can have criticisms of it. God knows I do. But I do wish that people would stop using the word lazy about them. Because no, like, there's nothing lazy about this. Like, you can put a hell of a lot of really hard, dedicated work into something in good faith and still produce something that is bad. That's a thing that happens sometimes. And they didn't happen because they were lazy. It happens because of, like, a million other reasons. But, like, so much fucking work goes into these things. And it's important to keep that in mind, like, so that you direct your criticism where it deserves to go. Let's see. For the VFX on the ASU, our main goals are updating old VFX to hit League's current visual standards and improving gameplay clarity for players. Being over a decade old, Lee Sin's VFX were out of date compared to other recent League of Champions, so we had to do quite a bit of work. We started by giving him new decals, the shapes in his VFX created on the ground, and symbol designs. Not only did his VFX get a fresh coat of paint, we also made improvements to gameplay clarity by simplifying the decal and symbol design. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's definitely an improvement. Yeah, like the scrolls on Lee Sin's shield never fucking made any fucking sense to me. Like, what the fuck were they supposed to be on? Just give him like a shield that looks like a shield. That makes way more sense to me. Ah, the boxing glove, yeah. And they good, because that was one of the things I was worried about, right? Like, here for his Q on Knockout Lee Sin, he flies with his fist first rather than his foot first. Good job, good. Because I was worried that was going to get lost in the update, that they were going to homogenize him even more, right? So I'm glad of that, and I like that he actually throws a boxing glove now. That's cute. Lee Sin now fires a real fist, much like a real boxer. Very good. I like that. In other cases, like with Playmaker Lee Sin, we had to update older skin themes that weren't as established. We needed to figure out how to reach the current visual standard with staging to the. So here he throws a soccer ball. I don't know that makes a lot of sense. Like, why would he throw? That's where, like, in terms of, instead of having him do a punch, this is one thing about, like, the gameplay clarity thing. Of, I don't know if that's a thing that they just couldn't do because of gameplay clarity, but I would have him for the animation on the Q with the soccer skin make him kick the ball. Like, surely, make him just kick the ball from the ground rather than do the punching thing. But that's a thing about, like, when Lee Sin winds up for his throw Q animation, you need to be able to see that as a player and read that as, oh, that is his Q animation. I need to dodge the fuck out of the way. So maybe that just wasn't feasible to change the animation on the Q, which is one of his most important abilities, completely like that. So that's a compromise, I guess. Tackling Storm Dragon. Now, this one I'm interested in. Storm Dragon is one of the more popular Lee Sin skins, in part due to its unique, cool dragon VFX flying around, but at the same time, we got feedback from players that the dragon VFX could be distracting and sometimes got in the way of gameplay clarity. Yeah. Like, there's more than that as a problem for the Storm Dragon skin, but it certainly doesn't hurt to tune up the VFX a little bit. Let's see. We wanted to improve gameplay clarity while still keeping it just as cool. We started by reducing the brightness. Yeah, that's fine. Passive, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's okay. It does look better. Like, that definitely does look less distracting and more clear. Because one of the things about his Q in Storm Dragon is that it also just looks like a much more powerful ability than it really is. Like, all of this is a marker, right? Like, it's just this is the marker that lets him dash to you. I always thought it was weird that it's a full-ass fucking dragon that he's throwing at you, and that's, like, one of his, like, little poke abilities. It's like, no. Okay, sound effects. Okay. Yeah, so I can hear a little bit of, like, it definitely sounds more modern League of Legends, like that little hum, that little, like, sound that, like, when he hits the, like, the little, like, that's definitely much more modern League of Legends, and it also makes more sense with him as this monk character. Ooh, I like that better. Yeah. Like, the hit sound, listen to the hit sound. Whoa, dunk! Like, that's a much better Foley. Like, that feels way more powerful. Nice. But yeah, I'm sort of less... I'm less interested in the sound design of League of Legends. Not that it's not fascinating, it's just not really my deal. So read that part of the article for yourself. Yeah, like those parts of the article less interesting to me specifically. So I'm not going to go through and react to those. But do go read them yourself if you're interested in, like, the further details of the design on a character in a game like this. Because generally these articles are real good about that. But anyway, yeah, I think I'm gonna break up the Lee Sin ASU article reading into a different video from the reacting to the PvE mode thing, because it feels like I sort of went off in a little bit of a different direction there. But that's good. Like, Lee Sin, I'm sure I'm going to have a million criticisms of it. Like, there are things about it that feel a little too conservative. Like, there are things about it that I don't know that I feel like they made him a little too pretty. I think is the thing I have about the way that his face looks now, is that he looks a little too pretty and handsome. And I kind of liked something on the old model that he looked a little scrungly and wungly, right? Like, that he looked a little fucked up. Because that's kind of part of his, or used to be part of his story at once upon a time, that he was a little bit old and fucked up in some ways. He looks a little too young now, I feel. A little bit too much like with that immaculately groomed beard and the smooth skin, it looks a little bit too much like he could plausibly take off that blindfold and be like really annoying tech bro in modern day San Francisco. And that's like, yeah, I kind of liked him a little bit more scrungly and wungly. With the textures, the old textures on his face, I feel like, right, like you see the lines underneath there, like it sort of gave the vibe of someone who was a little bit older and someone who was like maybe a little bit fucked up. Because like one of his old backstories, and he's had a bunch over the years, was that he specifically like was his eyes were clawed out by the dragon spirit, or he was blinded by the dragon spirit in some specific way in retaliation for his hubris, and like so that like specifically that he has like a disfigurement over his eyes, or that like he not yeah like that his skin is marred and like burnt because he's an old character. Like his very first lore was that he was a summoner. At first, like he was a career summoner, a really powerful one, a really good one. He fucked up some shit and got really like and felt intense guilt about it, and then went and became a monk. So that was like the second phase of his life, and like that he was specifically like a guy who was like probably in his late 40s. That used to be a part of his lore. That hasn't been part of his lore for many years now. But that used to be sort of part of him. This feels too young. This feels too much like a guy in his mid-20s who's like a fitness influencer on Instagram. Like I kind of liked it when he was more specifically like a guy who was like 30 to middle-aged, something along those lines. This feels a little too young for me, and like so I'll have my criticisms, but like I said, the technical aspects of what goes into making one of these reworks, to making any one of these champions, these characters, it's like it's all interesting and fascinating, and a bunch of people are doing so much good fucking work behind the scenes to make these things real. And I appreciate it. I really do. Even like I'm gonna throw rocks at what they make, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. Anyway, bye.